Hey, I'm Joe, and I'm a composer and a musician.
That's why we call you the maestro. And I'm Will. I'm a literal doctor.
But don't trust this guy with your ailments.
No, I study comic books, but it still counts.
We're a couple of creative kids who host a podcast called Common Creatives.
We dig deep into filmmakers, musicians, books, and characters, really all types of artistic works and the people who make them.
We break apart the art we love to see what makes it tick.
Basically, we give you the definitive take on whatever or whoever we're discussing. All opinions are definitive and final.
So check out Common Creatives wherever you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the Eleventy Life podcast.
What's up, Eleventy family? Matt here. Welcome to this week's episode of Eleventy Life. It's one I'm really excited about because if you tuned in for last week's episode, then you know that I had the privilege of having an amazing conversation with Matt MacDonald of The Classic Crime. He's one of my new favorite people, and his band is super badass. So if you haven't checked them out yet, head on over to the show notes and you can get a link to their Spotify right there. On behalf of the rest of the cast and crew here at Rock Candy Recordings in beautiful Asheville, North Carolina, I would like to wish you the very best weekend that you could possibly have. I hope that this weekend holds wonderful, wonderful experiences for you, whether it's on a trail in the woods or at the lake with your friends, socially distancing, of course. Or maybe you have hundreds and hundreds of songs bubbling up inside of you and you've been waiting for a few free hours to let those come out. Let me just encourage that creativity in you for just a moment. Everybody knows that 2020 so far has felt and seemed exactly like a dumpster fire, and I've been a part of several dumpster fires, so I know what I'm talking about. And it is so important that we take the time to do creative things, that we take the time to turn the faucet on between everything that's happening inside of us emotionally and spiritually and let it out. Turn it into something. Bring it out here into the real world for the rest of us to enjoy and experience. And you know what happens after we accomplish something creatively? We feel happy. We feel the joy of completion, and it's absolutely free. It costs you nothing but taking the time to be open to the magic happening all around you. For those of you who are brand new to the show, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. We here at Eleventy Life are also part of a greater group of creators within the Rock Candy Network. If you have not checked out shows like Sacred Tension, Common Creatives, Bubble and Squeak, let me tell you, you're missing out because these are some of my favorite people, some of my favorite creators in the world, and I'm so grateful to be able to work alongside of them and to see all the things that they come up with. Huge hugs and high fives per usual to everybody hanging out at the Eleventy Life Facebook group. I miss you guys. Also, a huge shout out to everybody who is following our band on Spotify, including our songs in your favorite playlist. You guys move the needle on our career. You make everything that we do here at Rock Candy possible, and we talk about you guys every single time that we have a meeting because you are the fuel in the engine, and we cannot thank you enough for that. Whether you're purchasing something on the Rock Candy online store or you're choosing to have the music that we create here be a part of the soundtrack of your life, we do not take it for granted, so thank you for that. Thank you for being involved with us in that way. The official Rock Candy Recordings studios are now open in Asheville, North Carolina, and we are taking many precautions to be sure that we are in compliance with all of the latest and greatest COVID updates and best practice for helping slow this virus. So if you are an artist, a band, a singer-songwriter working on an album, we would love for you to come work on it here. And we are very, very grateful and excited to have new sessions coming in, new bands coming into the studio. It's our absolute favorite thing on the planet to do, to make new music and help bands refine and hone in their sound, but we have to do it safely. So we are taking precautions to keep everyone who comes into our studio safe and protected from infection in the best ways that we possibly can. So if that's you, if you are looking for someone to produce or mix or master your next album, please feel free to reach out to us. You can get to us at the Rock Candy Recordings website. Let us know about your project. Let us know what you're interested in doing, and let's see if we can work something out. Much love to everybody that is a part of the Eleventy family. I love your memes. I love your positive attitudes. I love everything that I get to see about you and your life on the Eleventy Life Facebook page. So thank you for that. Thank you for making my world a little bit brighter. So without further ado, let's get into part 2 of my conversation with Matt MacDonald of The Classic Crime. Yeah, I mean, our experience was very much like, we probably should have not. We were signed like sight unseen. Nobody at the label, because it was the Audio Adrenaline guys that were running Flickr at that time. And I think that they were trying to sign a whole bunch of artists because they wanted to sell the label to Sony, because Sony had expressed some interest. They were like, oh my God, you're spending 10 grand to make a record? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And these artists are doing this well? That's amazing. Like, let's do that. And I think that they had this idea that, oh, if they're already experiencing this kind of success, we can throw a lot more money at bands like that and see returns. Well, then, like, money's not the answer to everything, especially in bands or poverty. Like, I don't know, well, like, whatever. It's more systemic than that. And so we ended up like doing our first record. They put us with this producer, Travis, who was like working with POD at the time. We are like a shitty pop punk band. We are barely hanging on when it comes to just like getting songs and like playing shows and making that cohesive and like doing that thing. But we had some demos, and a friend of ours kept sending demos over to Mark and Will. We ended up, long story short, they ended up offering us a record contract like my first year in college. So I was 19 at the time, and I hated college, and I was also going through this like existential spiritual crisis where I was like, I don't know if I believe any of this, and I hated myself for not believing any of it. And it was a bad moment for me in life. I was probably about a few weeks away from just calling the whole band thing off. I had already started this electronic solo project that I was doing. Yeah. And then we got offered a deal, and it was like, to me, it wasn't so much a deal, it was direction. It was like an answer. Right. It was like, oh, so here's what you can do at least for the next 18 months of your life. Sure. And you don't have to work at Aeropostale in the mall. Sure. Folding panties.
I was at Sharper Image and Nordstrom. So
yes.
I know.
Oh my God. Why am I even telling you about my life? You've already lived it. Yeah. So
no, yeah, keeping that dream alive is key. And yeah, it doesn't always work out the way that you plan, but it sort of just worked out. I mean, I've been through several different transitions where it's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. And then, a window opens and I go, well, see what's outside. So yeah, just keep it going.
It is weird because I don't know. At this point, like, I don't know if I'm attempting to have a healthier relationship with music and with this band than I have. I don't know what that's looked like for you, but like when I was a teenager, it was everything. It was my identity. It was like, this is what I do. This is what sets me apart from other people. This is what gives me value. This is what gets me attention. This is what gets me affection.
Sure.
And then ultimately you kind of grow out of that. For some people, it's really jarring. For me, I feel like it was just like, it just became a little too nihilistic about any of it. So I was I can do without this. But then I always sort of feel drawn back to it.
To music or the identity of musician?
Well, because I started producing and writing for other people. So now I produce all the time and mix. So I like being involved in that. But for me, like my creative output always felt so important and so sacred. And sometimes I feel like it suffers because I give too many fucks about it.
Sure,
if that makes sense. Like I wish that I had this ability to just step back from it and let it happen and not care so much.
It's just a song. You'll write another one.
That's it.
It doesn't matter. This one. Just put this one out. See what happens.
It's exactly what I tell people in the studio all the time.
I know. When I got the producer hat on, let me tell you, I know all the answers. But when I have the artist hat on, I need somebody else because I don't have any answers.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's this. I talked about this in the songwriting workshops. I was trying to explain philosophically what it's like to write a song, and I was using the Taoist symbol, yin yang, the black and the white, and one is representing chaos and one is representing order, and you need both. You need to stand on the border on that line because you need to be reaching into chaos where you don't know. It's dark, it's unknown, it's unsafe. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know anything, and you have to reach out of the chaos and bring it into the order where it can be known and seen. It's in the light.
Yes.
It's now part of the physical world.
Yes.
And that's a difficult thing to do because when I'm in my art zone, I'm sticking my head in the dark, and I'm feeling around, and I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm unsure. It's not solid. I'm floating. I don't know what's out there, and I gotta grab something real quick and run back to the order, to bring it into reality. I was trying to explain this to people, and I was like, I'm probably confusing you all, but because they thought they were going to get like, how do you write a verse?
They thought they were going to get their money's worth, and instead they got some existential mumbo bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, how do I explain how to write a song? And I zoomed way out, I zoomed out, and then I zoomed back in. I told them how to write a verse after, but I wanted to give them the background of like, listen, anybody can write a song. That is craft. That is engineering. You can learn it. Anybody can learn it. Yep. But you can't learn how to make art.
Right.
You have to be diving into the abyss to do it. And you have to be okay with it. It's unsure. It's unsafe. That's the good. When you start to feel that unrest, that's when you're on the border. That's when the art happens.
Yes. Oh my God. I love that. And if I had been in that song, that sounds like something I would have said when I was teaching in college, because I was teaching audio production for a while. And I do feel like I was the teacher that everybody's like, oh, he's kind of like this weird hippie person. And I'm like, no, it's not. If you're just
magic, man.
Right. If you're just here to like make, to brush stroke, then brush your strokes. But if you want to know where the stroke is coming from, you should ask some different questions, and we should be having a different conversation.
Well, I mean, it blew it wide open for me on our first record. We went in with this big rock producer. He'd worked with all these gold and platinum bands, and I remember thinking, because I dropped out of college, but I know a bit about Pro Tools, and I had recorded our first EP, which was terrible, and I mixed it myself, and I had no idea what I was doing. And there is an art to production that I didn't understand, because I was thinking of it in engineering terms, like, okay, what's this, like the settings, like on the vocal compressor, like, what's your ratio? What's the attack speed? Like, and he's like, honestly, I don't know any of that. I just turn it till it sounds good. I'm like, shut up. Really? And that was like super freeing for me, because I was like, why am I worried about the abstraction of the thing that I'm doing? The thing that I'm doing is trusting my ears, trusting my soul. How do I receive this?
Right.
Not the abstraction of that. No, let's go over to the graphs and see what the graphs say. Oh, technically that's not okay. It's like, no, when you push it and it distorts, that's cool. Like, you trust your ears.
Right.
You're like, oh, no, that's clipping. It's like, I don't care if it's clipping. Listen to it. It's awesome. That's the art of production. And I think that following your ears it's the same thing. It's like, what sounds good in this? Like, my eyes are off. Like, I'm closing my eyes.
Right.
And I don't have the map. Yeah. But what sounds good out here, and following that. Yeah. That's where the art is for me. I don't know how we got on that topic, but
we started a few miles back. Okay. I'm not sure how we got here either. But
I can go forever if you let me. No, so just interject.
This is great, and I love it. I really love your idea of bringing the Taoist sort of imagery into pulling this creativity from chaos.
Right.
I feel like I especially resonated with that because this newest record that we just put out, I had reached a really dark point in my life where I realized that I had an anxiety problem, and I had put all of these different spiritual definitions on it, and I spent so much time hating myself that I could not get this thing together. I could not fix this thing about me, and it was causing me so much anguish and grief. And I've always sort of been this guy that was a little bit on if I don't get my alone time or I don't get my centering practices, I really will just go off the deep end. And so I lived a lot of my life in fear that I would do that, in fear that I would have a blow up or I would not be able to control my emotions or not be able to do. And a lot of that came from growing up within Christianity, or the version of Christianity in which I was exposed to. And so before I started writing this record, I ended up going to therapy. It was one of the best fucking things that I have ever done. It also comes with its own set of complexities, because when you mention reaching into the chaos and pulling something out, I feel like that's exactly what I was doing for this last record that I wrote in a way that I didn't even know how to do before.
Sure.
Like before then, it was like I'm writing pop songs because I love the artistry of pop and I love the artistry of these thoughts and melodies and everything. And so I was deriving joy from that. And I had finally reached this place where I feel like I'm happy to tell you about me because I'm okay to look at me now. Mm-hmm. And I feel like what therapy did for me was shined a flashlight into the chaos and kind of terrified me what I saw. Like, and when I started pulling stuff out of it, they weren't just things that I could just like say yay or nay to. It was like, as soon as it's out, now I have to deal with it. Now I have to deal with this fact that like I have these things in my life that I don't know how to control, or that I'm so prone to becoming an alcoholic or an addict, or that I have been in a lot of ways in my life. If it wasn't alcohol, it was something else. It was these mental loops that I get caught in. It was like weird fucking toxic ways in which I was engaged in relationships with people that were my fault, like that were these loops I was putting myself on that I didn't even realize. That might be too much to tell you, but
no, that's fine.
I say that.
Take it all.
Yeah, I say that because I wonder if you can relate in any way. I wonder if there's been any experiences like that sort of opened your artistry up.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, that's a big one. All the experiences do something. I think art is definitely informed by life. It's kind of like there's 3 layers of meaning in the title of our last record, Patterns in the Static. But one of it is that what am I thinking? The peripheral sensory data of your life, the things that you're walking through life and you don't know you're seeing, but you're taking it in.
Yep.
That's just static, right? Because you're not seeing it. It looks like chaos. But then it gets imprinted in your brain and out comes a song, which is pattern.
Right.
And so all of my art, I feel like, is informed by things that I'm conscious of and things that I'm unconscious of, that I'm going through. And sometimes, like you're referring to, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by how my subconscious, how much it is in pain, or it is feeling something, because I'll write a song and I'll be like, whoa, I didn't know I had that in me. Like I've been ignoring that.
Yes. I love that. I love that. I feel like I got into this like groove where I was getting nervous about going into these sessions because I had no idea why, but I would get 10 minutes in, I would lose my shit. I would just start crying out of nowhere. And it made me feel even more lost because I knew that there was a reason, like I knew that there was a source to the wave, but I had no idea where it was coming from or what part of myself it was coming from. And so I think that's one of the cool things about songwriting and the actual artistry of songwriting is almost like chasing down the origin of those waves. Like, because you're like what you're saying, you'd be so surprised what will come out, like that will give you an insight into yourself and to others.
It's the only reason I still do it is because it surprises me. If I'm bored by it, or if I'm just doing something that used to surprise me, but it doesn't anymore, I'm not, I don't think that's art anymore. That's more like assembly line manufacturing. So I'm doing it to be surprised because I have this, from whatever childhood trauma I've experienced, I have this need to experience newness and difference and depth and pain and suffering and all the beautiful, wonderful, terrible things of life.
Yeah.
And I want, and I need it. Like I need to do it because I still need it. And, you know, maybe if I'm cured one day, I'll stop writing. So I'm just kidding.
I hope you're afflicted eternally.
It's the tortured artist BS. But I definitely, there's something about it that is sort of therapy. You know, it's like, this is how I process my emotions. I'm not very good in real life. I'm either sarcastic or angry most of the time. I don't know how to be, but you get me in a room by myself and I can express me somehow in some better, more vulnerable way. So that's why I do it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I don't know if you've ever tried therapy out, but
I have. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it. My wife and I go back on occasion to re-up.
To re-up. I love that.
We re-up for some sessions occasionally, and it's been very, very helpful. Man, I think talking is catharsis. Talking vulnerably about your feelings is absolutely cathartic and does solve a lot of, problems from getting out of control. So I'm into it.
I love it, dude. Well, tell me about this. Like, when you're thinking about the entirety of your time, like within the classic crime, was there a moment in your band where you felt really out of control? Like, what was the absolute worst moment in your band that you can remember?
I think it was like on our third record when I had brought all the demos to the band, and by this time
you got there so quickly. By the way,
sorry, what, our third record?
No, I just mean like this. When I prompted you for this memory, it was almost like it was just resting underneath the surface.
Well, as you were saying it, I was like, oh yeah, that's the time. So it apparently stuck with me. I mean, there was a time before when we drove back from Hollywood with our tails between our legs, but but we were still a band. We were still together. We were still doing it. We still had the dream. It was alive.
Yeah.
And there was this point where our third record, Vagabonds, on Tooth and Nail, came out in 2010. I had written a bunch of songs and brought them to the band, and the band inputted nothing into them. So basically, like, besides like a half of 2 songs, it was like, that was it. That's what they could bring. They were, the guys were going back to school. They were getting married. They were thinking, guys, we're not trending upwards here. The industry is trending down, and and I got it. I understood it, but I was like, I don't write music to be a success. I write music because this is what I do. Like, that's how I process things.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, almost felt like a betrayal. Like when the record came out, I was like, I did this record by myself and they didn't help, and it should be better than this. Like, it should be better. Like, they should help me be better than this. And then we're playing at the Showbox in Seattle. This is our CD release show. I think it's like 1,100 cap, and it's sold out, and it should be the best. I mean, we loved playing here. We played here a bunch. Should be the best night of my life. And I looked around on stage playing some new songs from the record, and I just hated everybody. I saw that their loyalty and commitment to the band was gone. They didn't like the new songs. They weren't playing anything passionately. Like, I just knew in the moment, like, our connection wasn't there, and it was done. Like, and I just hated everybody. Like when you do a home show and, girlfriends, spouses, whatever, friends are drunk and they want to hang out after, and they're like, come on, let's go, blah, blah. I just went straight home. My wife was like, let's go. And I was like, I can't. And it was like the first time that's ever happened to me, where I like said no to a party. But I was just like so upset. Like, probably about 6 months of like depression followed, where I was like, the whole thing is over.
Yeah.
And I knew it, and it was right. And I think we might have done one tour in Australia because nobody could say no to that. And then that was basically it for that. And then Tooth and Nail was like, hey, we'll pick up your 4th option, but we need to renegotiate. And I said, I don't want to renegotiate down. So we were just free. And then our guitar player left, and I was just sitting there going, what do I do now? For a while. And that's when we did our first Kickstarter. So from the bottom, we clawed our way back independently. But yeah, that was definitely the worst feeling. It's like when I had the dream die of like, this is us together. This is the music we make. And like having that all in one moment be like, oh, it's not us anymore. Like, everyone's going away.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and I'm alone. Like, they abandoned me. And they abandoned me with their energy on stage in front of this crowd.
Oh my God.
Like,
they left
brutal.
you out
It's
there.
brutal. Yeah.
With your pants down.
And I hated them.
And they were pointing at your wiener too.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. We had a really similar, we had a very similar situation. I was always, I feel like I learned an awful lot about leadership. And I don't mean this in a Christian way. I feel like it is laughable that there are. Yeah, right. Yeah. Sorry. I misspoke. Discipleship, actually, Matt. It was just like, I don't think that things like leadership and group cohesion can be taught in a course. Like, everything I've ever learned about people and how to maintain a spirit and a unity, like amongst a group and to keep people motivated has just come from these awful, awful times where I fucked everything up. I saw it completely the wrong way. I mismanaged energy, resources, like my own self. Like I was critical of others when I should have let it go. It was because I was too critical of myself. Like, and I remember us being like in Germany. They had like rented out this church, whatever tour we were on. It was this beautiful fucking cathedral, just like work of art in the middle of this like quaint German town that was just so picturesque. Everything about it was magical. The whole church building was full of people. Like now that I'm thinking about it now, it feels a little indie filmish. But and sort of telling of what our career would be like. There's all these kids in this church, and I remember just like looking out over this like sea of kids that were so excited for us to be there, so happy, because that clearly like nothing came to this town often, because they had to use the church to put the show on, and we started into our intro, and I just remember looking over at our bass player Davey, and we just both looked at each other, and we knew like that none of us felt it, that everything we were doing was complete muscle memory, that it had got, things had just gone too far. We couldn't fabricate any sort of passion for what we were doing. And why would we? Like, we just needed to step away from it. But how did that play out in your interpersonal relationships with the band?
Good, actually. I mean, we're still all friends. I've somehow been able to, since day one, understand that I like be aware of this desire that I have for control of my own destiny, not control of other people, but I'll control them as long as they're to make them not control me. Like I have this thing where I'm like, I cannot be under the influence or the boot of anybody. And you're not going to tell me what to do. Right. And as long as you don't tell me what to do, we're going to be cool. So I have that in me, but I have to check that. I know that it's there, and I have to, and maybe this is a gift of, I don't know, the evangelical upbringing or whatever, just knowing that like, oh, if I humble myself, even though I'm right, or I do all this work, or you guys do need to respect me or whatever. Like just to be like, all right, well, I'm going to be generous to you. That I've seen at a young age, I did this and I saw it work. And so I just started doing it more. Like when it came to like publishing, I was like, yeah, it all goes back in the band fund. I'm not going to fight over money. Like, I don't care about that shit. And like, I feel like that created cohesion in our band.
So it built up social capital within like your.
Because as the main songwriter, I could have just taken all the, we got signed a big pub deal. That could have been my money, but I looked at other bands that did that. And I was like, that's bullshit. Like, we're all in the van together. Like, yeah, I spent 5 minutes writing the song, but like, come on, we're all working. And but that's like weird of me. I think that's also part of I hate the power that money has over people. And I don't want to be controlled by money either. I don't want money to control my behavior. So I'm like, fuck money. You can have money too, So I think,
that's a great like political platform to run on in this day and age. Fuck money, you can have it too.
Yeah, you can have it too. I don't want all this fucking money. It's gonna control my life. So I think initially that kind of built a foundation of trust and just a sense that we're all in it together. And so I think that's why it was so painful for me to realize that just like natural things were happening, like people were moving on, and this was like I was aware that it was natural, and this pain was good to process, and it was like, this is a normal thing that happens. Like, people move on, things transition, and in the transition, that's where the growth is. And I understood all that, but I think we were able to maintain good relationships just because, I don't know, for some weird, lucky few actions where I kind of learned to like not be all about me, ego, frontman, lead singer guy, and to see that grossness in other people and be like, they don't drive, they don't do anything, they won't even pump gas, like
they won't even
children.
Pump gas. That's that's so like indicative of all of our situations. Like there's never going to be a time where one of us wasn't going to have to pump gas. And it's just so offensive to us that somebody could ride the bus and never get their hands dirty.
Right. Yeah. So that to me, and that's part of like road culture too. Like that's part of the, like, it was good that we didn't sign to a major and whatever, but especially since most of those majors evaporated in the 6 months after. But but like being on the road and sleeping in Walmart parking lots and just paying your dues, for several years, that is humbling too. It's like, how can you think you're better than anybody?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you can pretend to be on stage, but then you're going to wake up in a Walmart parking lot and brush your teeth
with the rest
in
of
a
us.
Walmart sink,
Yeah.
and wet wipe shower yourself. Like no one's special here. So I think that's part of the reason why we're still buddies. Is just that camaraderie, that kind of egalitarian, seeing each other as equals.
I love that. I'm so happy that you have that with bandmates still after all this time. I think that is a gift in and of itself. Do you, on the other side of that coin, do you remember a time that was the most empowering in your band? Like, do you have
there was inverse? Like a peak experience? I mean, there was several. I mean, obviously, here's the thing. We're all junkies, right? We all got the dopamine hit after dopamine hit after dopamine hit every night, every week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Most people don't even get that on a Friday. We got it every day of the week.
You got it on Mondays?
We got it on Mondays, dude. We got it on Mondays. We got it on Tuesdays. It was Monday. It was Mondays in Denver, Tuesdays in Salt Lake. I mean, That's just, like dopamine. Like you become a junkie, and honestly, nothing stands out to me anymore. It's like I don't have any memories. Everything is a peak memory. I've had a peak memory in every town in America.
Yeah.
But so there's one that did stand out, and it was our first year, and they had taken our first single, The Fight, to active rock radio, which was not our genre. I mean, this is another Venn diagram that we crossed over into that didn't really fit us.
Right.
So active rock, The Fight. Okay. So we're at this X Fest in Indianapolis at the Verizon Wireless Amphitheater. And basically here's the line. We got a police escort into it because there was a lineup too. So the cops saw us and like escorted us in. So that was cool. We got back to our trailer, but it's like a trailer behind the stage. And on the billing is Godsmack, Shinedown, Bullet for My Valentine, Buck Cherry, Alien Ant Farm.
Alien Ant Farm, oh my God.
And 18 Visions and Us.
How the hell did you get on that bill?
It was just like they played our single. They added our single to their playlist or whatever. And the fans liked it. And they said, yeah, we'll bring them out. We'll pay them. I think we were getting like $500. And we were like, we're rich.
Oh my God.
And we get on stage and they had let everyone in. We're the first ones.
Yeah.
There is 20,000 people.
Oh my God.
All the way back. You can't see the end of this thing.
Yeah.
And there's like, we're backstage after we sound check. And Chrissy, my wife, who toured with us the first year, because we just gotten married, and we were like, well, she'll be merch girl or whatever.
Oh wow! Congrats on that.
That's a long story.
Yeah.
To a lot of ups and downs with that, but she comes back and just like, you guys have to come see. There's titties everywhere. We're like, what do you mean? She's like, come look at these titties. And so we like sneak up side stage, like what's going on? And there's like girls on the shoulders of guys, just like, of course, shirts up. This is Indianapolis, right? This is Godsmack fans in Indianapolis. Like this is not our people. So it was like a culture shock. It was like, wow, look at these people and how they behave, and there's so many of them. And so we played our set. It was fun. We had this incredible hang one-on-one session. Like I think Alien Ant Farm just like came into our trailer and didn't know if it was theirs or not, and then they just didn't leave. So we're just drinking beers. And they told us their whole life story, and we're like, Alien Ant Farm, no shit. I remember you guys in high school.
Oh my God.
And then we went to a bar with them after, and we were texting after, like we exchanged numbers. We were buddies, they were super sweet. And then we woke up in a Walmart parking lot the next morning, like all looked at each other like it was like Cinderella turning into a pumpkin or whatever. It's like,
did that just happen?
Did that just happen? Yeah, that was like the biggest contrast of like 20,000 people at a show. I do a backflip off the drum riser, hang out with the Alien Ant Farm, and then Walmart parking lot and like super hungover.
Oh my gosh.
Beautiful parts of life right there.
Yes. I'm so happy for you that you got to experience all those titties in Alien Ant Farm. What a gift. What a gift that the universe bestowed upon you.
Oh yeah. That was like, right before we did the Tooth and Nail tour too. So that's funny.
Oh man. So what was so out of everything, out of your entire creative output that you've had with the Classic Crime, is there something that you are the most proud of, or when you've created something, you're done with it, you just move on? Like,
I'm always most proud of the last thing I did, but just because it's like, that's kind of more reflective of me. Like, as you know, when you put a record out, you know, some of the songs are 2 years old and they're not even reflective of you anymore.
Right.
It's just a thing you were going through, you know. I have people ask me, it's like, I have this song that I put out in 2007, and I think that one of the lyrics is like, I sing songs I don't like to strangers every night.
Yeah.
And people are like, what songs don't you like? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I wrote that when I was 22 years old. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking. Like, that was a feeling I had in the moment. So I always feel like the newest ones are more representative of me and kind of where I'm at. And, but yeah, I leave them behind. As soon as life goes on, I keep thinking about what are the songs of my new perspective or this perspective.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love that. I can totally relate to that. I think, like, to tie it back into how we started the conversation off, I feel like there are a lot of times where people are like, that are into our band because of some spiritual content that they heard. Like,
sure.
when all of us were much younger.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've had that conversation with people so often where I'm like, look, I literally wrote this song when I was 16. Like, I was living in a trailer in the middle of fucking nowhere, South Carolina.
Right.
And I was broke and I had no like understanding of anything. And I was like going to youth group. Okay. Yeah. So like that, my whole world looks completely different than that now.
Right.
Like yeah.
Yeah. And we've had, I think earlier on, I did write more about kind of just like, I am interested in the metaphysical. Yes. I mean, that's what I'm talking about when you're chaos and order and paradox and it's all one and there's something outside of us and there's senses and vibes. And I believe in magic. I do. I have to in order to write songs that are decent, in my opinion. If I'm going to like the song, I have to believe in magic.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
So I am interested in the big topics of life and meaning and what is it all for and whatever. And I think I've always sung about those things. It's just that when I was younger, I had a linguistic framework for all those things that was really instilled in me from church culture.
Right.
And so there's these little trigger lines where if I listen back now, I go, oh, I had no idea I was using
propaganda,
the linguistic framework of of church culture.
Yes.
I thought I was using what people referred to as these metaphysical, questions or mysteries or realities.
Right.
But I was just using the framework. And I think that people identified a lot with the framework, even the framework for the relational aspect of like how I relate to reality.
Yeah.
It was very much like sometimes like father, son, that was the position that I was singing from.
Right.
Even though I didn't maybe even believe it. But that's what I like believe it cognitively in this like really I know very, very much way.
It was the only set of clothes that you had to put on the mystery.
Right. So even those old songs, sometimes I go, okay, I get why people listen to those. And there were moments early on in the first record before our first record where I was sort of like passionately like, yeah, I think Jesus was right and we should change the world. There were moments.
Right.
Like we should like probably save people, right. Some like white savior thing. And that kind of died pretty quick. But like, yeah, the songs are kind of, I can see how you could relate those songs to Christian thinking just because I use the same language. And I don't ever want to say that that's what they were about. But I understand why people would be like, well, weren't you Christian before and you're not now? And I'm like, no, I got new words for the same thing.
Yeah. I totally love that. And like we were saying earlier, I kind of feel like the place that I feel really comfortable now, with myself and maybe this like weird role that I see myself in or that I would enjoy and that I do feel like I enjoy in some people's lives is just sitting with people, like, because I know the Christian lingo. I know what most of the time what Christians are thinking, what they mean by these certain like trigger phrases. I know all of the propaganda that I grew up with. I am doing all of that exploration of what that looks like in my life right now. And I feel like I enjoy being with other people who are Christians who are trying to make sense of the damage and like trying to figure out how now shall they live? But like doing it in the real world and like doing it outside of the framework that they were taught, like, because everything in the world is you're taught that everything is evil and that anything that makes sense will lead you astray. And that like, if there's anything that you have a hard time explaining away, or that like, if somebody else's worldview or interpretation of what's happening in the world looks different, but makes sense to you, like be careful because the devil is prowling around.
Don't trust your mind.
Oh,
you can't trust your mind.
Right?
Yeah. The devil's in your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just go emotion. Don't think. Yeah. Don't use that mind of yours. That mind will get you in trouble. You start making sense. Woo! The road to hell is paved with making sense, man.
I know. It's that weird, like the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thing. You know what I mean? Right. Where like eventually you start relating more to the snake in the story than to anybody else.
How beautiful is that metaphor, though?
Yeah.
That is so often missed. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. There's so many ways you can take that. That's the paradox of chaos and order, that it's all one, it's all within one tree.
Yes.
That's also it's also a critique of dualism, like dualistic good and bad thinking. Like before, Adam and Eve in the story, which I believe is a beautiful metaphor, lived like animals. They didn't know good and evil. They ate, they did whatever they wanted. And then they woke up, they became conscious, they became human when they realized that there was like a future potential that they could do better if they sacrifice now, and that bad things might happen, and they became aware of their death. And so, but that awareness of good and evil, that dualistic thinking is what causes humans to evolve. Right. Because they want to do better. Right. Because they know they're going to die.
Yes.
And they want to leave something behind, a legacy. So they want to build a family, and they want to build structures and cities and civilizations. And I just think it's awesome when you zoom out of that story and see how much we missed growing up. It's on par with any creation myth. It might be the best one, I think. So I'm a Christian.
You heard it here, folks. You can quit tweeting at Matt. Yeah, I love that, dude. Well, we have totally gone the time, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say that, like, just come back on the show. Like, let's do another one. I'm not a fan of dragging out podcasts because I feel like people's attention spans like can't handle it.
Sure. But, well, I did a podcast for 2 straight years weekly, and I'm good at just talking nonstop about nothing and then just like sorting it out later. So
I love it.
It didn't bother me at all.
I love it. We'll come back on as soon as you want.
All right, man.
Eleventy Life is a production of